Welcome to segment 6, where we're going to chat a little bit about this administration continues to tighten the noose around the throats of freedom. You like that, Gretchen? That's I dreamt that title up.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic. It is. So NSA and the FBI, this is going to come as a shock. I don't know if you had time to read this. True shock. Apparently, they've not been erasing the data they said they were going to erase.
No crap.
Yeah, that's was a surprise to me. It was a surprise that somebody didn't know that.
Just like they're not shredding the 4473s that we fill out when we buy gas.
No, seriously, they're not. I thought they were. So
I remember they said, we actually don't have the ability to do that.
Judge Thomas Hogan named the NSA, the National Security Agency, as potentially in violation of law and said that the office broke several provisions of its own internal policies. When does that ever happen in the federal government?
OMG.
Yeah, hard to believe that. And here's my favorite one. FISA, the court, right? FISA, which is a federal entity, was authorized under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and always meets in secret behind closed doors. Critics claim the court has become little more than a means of allowing Americans' intel to receive rubber stamp OKs to place individuals under surveillance without having to go through the constitutional process of obtaining a warrant in open court, which is such a pain in the neck to do. And you remember, it was under Bush, as I recall, wasn't it, that this started?
I don't remember.
I think it was under the Patriot Act. If I recall, they didn't want to go into open court and say, we're going to do this, it tips our hand off.
Sure.
Well, okay, so people go, okay. I see that, yeah. So we're going to have a court. We'll have to go to a court, but it will be closed to the public. That should have been a flag right there.
Yeah.
Right then and there, it should have been a flag. But we're going to go before this FISA court, and we have to make the case.
Secret court.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's not that hard to make the case because we now have a judge who's going, you know what? This is a load of crap. This whole privacy thing. And then, this is, been the thing that I've ragged about for a long time. 53 police departments now across the United States. 53 of them have signed on to this White House thing, where they got
the International Police Force.
Exactly, right. They're literally becoming federalized law enforcement, even though they wear local colors.
Sure.
That worries me more and more.
That's disturbing.
Now, you may recall that a year or so ago, I was more optimistic than that because I'm an oath keeper. A lot of people we know are oath keepers. And we're going, well, a good, honest cop he's never going to do something against the Constitution. And then, the standoff in where was Idaho? No.
Oregon.
Oregon, the standoff in Oregon, and good cops. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who you can turn your back on and who you can't anymore.
Yeah, somebody said to me, "Yeah, trust but verify," and I said, "No, just verify."
Yeah, verify. Forget the trust.
I don't trust anybody.
Yeah, and don't turn your back when you're verifying.
Exactly.
Now, and you particularly like the website shtfplan.com, which we can say that on this, can't we? This is internet.
Yeah, but that actually is the website. It's not spelled out.
No, it is. That is the name of the website, but I'm sure everyone probably knows what that stands for.
Well, you could Google SHTF, or I could just tell you it means shit hits the fan.
And then there's that.
I'll be your Google.
There you go. As we said during the show, this president and Hillary Clinton, literally, they're no longer even masking it. They're not making it lighter. They're just out and out saying people just don't have a right to own guns.
Yes.
Just that simple.
There's too many guns, entirely too many guns, and we don't think that you're even within your rights.
Hillary Clinton has said no one should have the right to carry a gun on the street. The guns belong in your house. And then in the same talk said there are too many guns in people's homes. We need to follow a common sense. I always like that. That's why God invented the cough button. There's
I was using it.
I should have used
Apparently
it too.
it doesn't. Apparently it doesn't work
I should have used it too.
after.
But literally, they're just out and out saying we'd have common sense gun laws like Australia, which I doubt any of our listeners would
I
misunderstand
doubt
that.
there's anyone who doesn't know what that refers to.
But Australia was gun confiscation. If you happen to
Total bans of
Yeah.
private ownership
Yeah.
of guns.
and now they're just outright saying that. And Clinton's daughter was on last week while
was
you were on
she?
vacation. Did you see that?
No.
Oh yeah, they had Clinton's daughter was on going. Now that Scalia is dead, I swear to you, now that Scalia is dead, we can get a true definition of the Second Amendment.
Wow.
So the segment is about this whole encroachment thing, and there's a group called the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. I belong, to
Oath
Oath
keepers.
Keepers, and this is, I guess, kind of like that. I'm not sure that I know the distinction well enough between the two, but basically what they're saying is we're not enforcing federal gun laws. Now they're not saying they're not going to enforce state gun laws, but we're not enforcing federal.
I think this CSPOA, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers, I think is active.
Yeah.
Active duty police officers
Right.
and sheriffs, and Oath Keepers is primarily not active.
Well, I think Oath Keepers is anybody that's taken the oath period. active
Okay,
or
but a
inactive.
lot of them are retired.
Well, a lot of it, yeah, that's true. That is true. There's a whole lot more retired than there are active.
Right.
But they're literally saying that, and this just amazes me. It says these guys, in essence, are troubled by the overreach of the federal government in matters concerning guns, taxes, and land management. And founder Richard Mack has described the Federals as the greatest threat we face today, and his association as the army to set our nation free. I'm not exactly certain where that's going either. The guys in Oregon, remember what I said when that whole thing started? I go, not that I disagreed with what they were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going, where's that going to go?
Right.
Where's it going to go? And we saw where it went. One guy got killed for no good reason, and basically it's a footnote in history at this point. I'm not so sure anymore, like I was a year ago. I was saying, the police would never do that. The majority of them are would never, come and knock on your door. The
Sure.
military is not going to take unlawful, against posse comitatus laws. I don't know if that's so true.
Well, and here's the thing. I know a lot of police officers. I love police officers, literally. But most people don't become police officers because they're Rhodes Scholars, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying, are they conversant with the Constitution?
Well, that is, I think, a reasonable question. I think people who tend to listen to shows like this type of thing, probably do. But if you look at the vast majority of people,
Right, I'm talking about
they probably don't.
the whole population of police officers.
Yeah.
And between us, we've known quite a few,
Yeah. I think there's a certain grain of truth in that. And I say this like in our classes, the average cop doesn't really know the law. And
Right.
I'm not being negative about that.
Right.
They don't go to law school.
Right.
So the average cop doesn't
They know what they're taught in academy.
and it's the big chunks. If somebody's
Right.
dead on the floor, that's wrong. Okay? And
Something went wrong, yes.
yes, something went wrong. And
But
I'm
it's true because, we talk about search and seizure and when the police can come into your home and what the limitations of the law are. We talk about that, and that came from Ed. And I was not taught that in police academy.
Sure.
I was a highway cop, and they didn't teach us, the legality of searches. They didn't, because that was for our superiors to tell us, either you can do it in this situation or you can't do it in this situation.
I think if you put yourself in the position of the average person in law enforcement, They're not overly paid. They're not paid particularly bad. Small departments maybe,
Yeah.
but
They're generally
yeah,
okay.
the state police they make decent money, and the sheriff's department makes decent money. So, but I don't care how much money you make. If you're a millionaire, you're spending most of what you make. I mean, that's sort of the American way of life.
Right.
We in fact we tend to spend a little more than we make.
Sure.
So no matter who you are in the food chain, how much money you make, if your commander, whoever's above you, says, go and do this,
Right.
A, I go and do it. B, I lose my job, my income, my health insurance, my retirement, my benefits, and my family and I now are going to get thrown out of our house. What's the average person? Anybody going to do?
Right. Exactly. It doesn't leave you a lot of choices.
It doesn't. And I've become a little more realistic about that. I hear a lot of cops say, well, I would never do that. But I wonder, and I'm not trying to be negative about it, but I seriously have to wonder, because I've had jobs where I faced the possibility of losing my job, and did. When you're suddenly faced with your entire life upheaving.
Right. Basically, the rug being pulled out.
Exactly. I mean, okay, so I'm going to go and get Bob's guns. All right.
Well, I would say my hope is that there tends to be strength in numbers. So my hope is that enough police will get together and talk amongst themselves and say, no, we're not going to do that. So that it's not any one guy like losing his job. It's more of a class action type of situation.
I think if the sheriffs and the chiefs of police, and it's probably easier for the sheriffs because chiefs of police are appointed.
Right.
So they're politically connected. But but sheriffs are elected. And so if a sheriff says, we're not doing that,
Right.
then your boss is saying, it's cool. We're not going to do that.
Right.
Unless you live in an extremely conservative community, of which there certainly are some, where the chief of police is appointed and the mayor is the guy who goes, we're not doing that.
Right.
That's probably not going to go well.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, I think, there are some who are going to go with their convictions knowing that they can probably get a job somewhere else, just as easily.
Maybe.
Go to a more conservative place and there'll be people going, yeah, absolutely. We would definitely hire you. So I think that, there's some hope of that.
What I would really hate to see is people who are strong Second Amendment supporters, hard right Second Amendment supporters, getting into battles with law enforcement.
Yes.
Because the average cop is just trying to do his job,
Right.
even if we don't necessarily agree with it.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if that's going to go. Now, one of the interesting things, one of the articles was about legislation to curb the power of unaccountable bureaucracy. What's been happening is bureaucracy, the IRS, all these bureaucracies are essentially writing their own laws. They're passing regulations which have the effect of a law.
They're making rules.
They're making rules, which is the effect of, basically it's a law.
Right.
With the FAA, if I violated a rule, I was up the creek without a paddle. Not that I ever did, but you see what I'm saying.
Yes.
There's no accountability.
Right.
So there's been legislation that they're talking about doing. One of the numbers that really popped out on that is since Obama became president, over 20,000 rules have been passed since Obama became president. We're talking, they've estimated at $100 billion a year.
And that's minimum because they're looking at the big ones. They're not looking at every single regulation.
Unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
Remember when
basically.
unfunded mandate was a curse word? When just saying that made people shudder.
It still is in Will County.
Yeah, well, that's true.
If you want to get people upset, you say unfunded mandate, and everybody goes, everybody loses their mind.
That's true. And you and your cohorts start frothing at the mouth.
Yeah, especially Steve Vallich and people like that.
And you're in control, and that helps.
It does.
So anyway, there's a thing called REINS, Regulations from the Executive in Need of Scrutiny, which I think is a great.
I like it.
It's a great name for an act, and it says it would implement justice a system that requires congressional approval for the 100 or so major rule changes every year that cost $100 million or more. But that bill has been stalled for 7 years. Now, who's in charge of the Senate? Who's in charge of the Congress?
Republicans.
And 7 years.
Yeah. Although for several of those 7 years, we were not in control.
But we have been now.
Yes, for a couple.
It still doesn't come out.
Yeah.
So the one thing that was brought up earlier is this entrenched system. And that's why I have a pessimistic outlook on the whole thing. And I don't have an answer to any of it. But I'm just saying that...
I do, but I think you and others have yelled at me before for...
What is your...
implying that I support such a thing.
Support what?
Armed revolution.
It's not that I find that distasteful.
From time to time, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of
patriots
and tyrants.
Right. That was...
I believe it was Jefferson.
Was it Jefferson? Or,
I believe it was Jefferson.
It's not that disturbs me. It's just that it can't be this uncoordinated cluster, you know what.
Sure.
Which is exactly what happened in Oregon.
I agree.
Yeah. I think, here's the thing, and this may be a good end to this segment. If all people of like mind one day just stood up simultaneously and said, we're done with this crap, it's over, what are they going to do?
Right.
If we went into Washington, D.C., and literally, as the congressmen and the senators came out, would go, that one, pull them out and go, you're unelected, go away. It's against the law. I don't give a crap if it's against the law. You're not going back in the door.
Right.
If the people just stood up and said no. But that's what my rant was about. Conservatives don't do that. They don't seem to care enough to do that.
Yeah, there was actually a little video on Facebook a couple of years ago about that, about, like if we didn't want to pay taxes collectively, if everybody just said, that's it, we're done, we're not paying our taxes anymore.
What are they going to do?
They can't arrest all of us.
Exactly. There's power in numbers, and the Democrats know that. Republicans haven't figured it out.
Well, and although the Tea Party was a very good example, and we had them on the run for a while.
Who was that again? What was the name of that group?
The Tea Party.
Tea Party. I think
we got a little disorganized, but same type of thing. Okay, this is the day we're going to Washington D.C. and we're shutting it down. And the internet's very good for that. I don't know how the revolutionaries did it. I don't know how the founding fathers did it.
Horseback.
But yeah, that's true.
The British are coming.
One if I land, two if I see. And but I think we're getting close.
I have to end this, since you bring that up, on an interesting little side note. When I was very young, after my mother passed away, my dad took me on a trip to the New England states. And it was one of those bus tour things, And we got to the spot, and the tour guide said, this is supposedly where Paul Revere sat on his horse and looked at the Old North Church at the tower for one if my land is two if I see. And a woman said, and I was like 9, and I remember this to this day, a woman said, how could he see it with that train track in the way? This is the American public.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they vote.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's true.
That's it. They vote. Whoever the Republican nominee is, you're going to vote for him. We'll see you next week.